Welcome to Purpose Uprising, a podcast about what it means to truly live in your purpose. This is about ordinary people living extraordinary lives by simply being themselves. My voice is a little raspy because I had an epic wedding this weekend. I got married to the love of my life, and I'm simply overflowing with love. I had no idea that getting married would be about the love story between my new husband and I and every person in our life. I had this idea of getting married as like this very intimate, like tunnel vision, like all I would be able to see would be my new husband. And it was not the case. I was in love with every single minute of the celebration, and it really reminded me of how much love I have to give and how much love there is in the world for me. And so I want to share this perspective because even if you didn't get married last weekend or this month or this year, this has nothing to do with getting married. This actually has to do with the love that is literally floating in the ether for you. There is so much love in this world. There really is. And it does not need to take a big ass celebration where everyone is in a room to show it. It's always there. And I'm realizing, of course, the post-wedding blues is a thing. And it's not something that I'm necessarily experiencing. I think I'm experiencing a bit of the opposite, and I have the mindset work to thank. So instead of feeling really sad that one of the best days of my life is behind me, I'm overflowing with love and with joy, and I want to take that feeling with me into the rest of my life. I want to take it into every single day. So I've been waking up with a whole new level of gratitude and love for life. And I'm really committed to keeping this going and to not just kind of let it fizzle out. That's what I'm taking with me. And I wanted to share that because there's so much love in this world for you. And while this podcast is really about connecting to your original essence, connecting to what makes you so uniquely you, it's also about self-love and actually coming back to that original essence and feeling so much gratitude and so much love for that person. Because in order for you to show up in the world as your best self and to share that love with others, also in order for you to receive it, you need to have cultivated that within yourself. And so I'm just gushing. I have totally lost my voice. Thank you for being here. In this episode, I'm speaking with the wonderful and magical Kindra Fox, who is a trauma-informed breathwork facilitator, a neo-emotional release practitioner, and a heart math certified trainer. She is so full of wisdom. You're gonna have to wait until minute 15 for a formal introduction because we go right in, we get right in flow, and we have the most beautiful conversation around surrender, around what it means to allow your voice to be heard, your voice and your breath to be heard. So Kindra is someone who has been an instrumental part of my self-discovery journey. I've done breathwork sessions with Kindra, and I was really, really excited to have her on this podcast. So without further ado, I'm not going to share anything else. You're in for a treat. Let's roll into the episode. I encourage you to take a deep breath and to breathe with us. We do that a lot in this episode. So whenever you hear us take a deep breath, this is a really beautiful practice to start implementing and integrating into your own life. you know?
Yeah. So everyone
Yeah.
sees the realness of it all.
Yeah, exactly.
Man.
What a good way to start.
Just find myself just taking these like big breaths where I'm just like, you know?
God, that feels so good.
I know.
It really
When
does.
you can just unleash yourself from thinking about how you sound or what it looks like, you know?
Oh my God, I already have goosebumps. I was listening to, I have a subscription to Mind Valley, okay? I don't know why I feel like I'm saying
hook
it
me up
that
with
way.
that.
Yeah. I'll give you my login details. And I've loved it. It's what allowed me to get into like hypnosis meditation. And there's a lot of breathwork tracks, but there's one course specifically on like sexual healing and reconnecting with your divine feminine and reconnecting with like really healthy and expansive intimacy with yourself and with a partner. And one of the like first things that this woman teaches you is like breathe. Like breathe and then allow the loudness as you're exhaling. And she's like, not only because it feels good and it regulates your nervous system, but also because of the vibration. Like the vibration actually adds to the pleasure, which I just was like, and then I tried it and I was like, oh, it really upgraded the whole experience.
That's great. Yeah. I feel like when we allow ourselves to just sigh and moan and sound with our exhale, it's our surrendering, it's our release.
Yeah.
And it sends information from our brain through the vagus nerve down into our nervous system that we are just ready to get into our bodies, get into our relaxation. So that's why I'm doing it all throughout the day because it's just giving my body those cues to say, hey, it's safe. You know, it's safe for you to just be relaxed right now. There's nothing you have to worry about.
Yeah. I've just started learning about the vagus nerve this year, the love nerve, the soul nerve. I'm obsessed.
The largest nerve, I believe, in the entire body.
Yeah. So. It's funny because I'm getting married in a couple of weeks, and I was like doing some research recently on why we wear rings on the left finger. And I knew that there was like folklore around like the left finger having a direct like line to the heart. And it was connected to the vagus nerve. It's like there was old thought. Now it's known that there's a connection to the vagus nerve through all fingers. But I just thought that was so interesting. And the vagus nerve keeps coming up in my life. So I love it.
That's why they call it vagal toning. Like when you're, you know, it's like this vagal toning, sounding that's like, again, just passing through the vagus nerve into the nervous system and just being like, hey, it's safe. So for everyone listening, sigh it out.
Sigh it out.
Sigh
it's
it
safe
out.
To be you.
Exhale it out as much as you want, as much as you need.
As much
it's
as
unlimited.
You can. Yeah.
It's unlimited. So it's something we should definitely take advantage of as much as we can.
Even as women, because I feel like this is going to sound so cliche, but we're conditioned to be quiet, like more quiet than men.
Yeah. Like imagine in the grocery store, I'm just like,
oh yeah.
you know, like everyone's probably like, you know, like what's happening over there? Like that woman is really unhinged. Like, you know, I've done this in public and people are like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm great. I'm just sighing. I'm just exhaling it out.
Are you okay? You should
try like, are you okay? Like, like, I feel like they're looking at me because they're like so contracted and so concerned with what everyone else is doing or what everyone else thinks of them in their expression.
Yeah.
And so we're all just like holding back from how we really feel.
Mm.
And it keeps us in this like really contracted state. So yeah, like I invite as many people as possible to take deep breaths in and sigh it out wherever you are.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Maybe starting in private, So you don't
Yeah.
have to work your
The
way up to
shower, the
public.
car. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
car. I actually
Yeah.
love screaming in my car. I'm not
Yeah.
screaming because I'm like angry. I just like to release.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the
Yeah.
first retreats that I went to, I like never went to retreats when I was in my like kind of corporate girly era. Just,
Mhm.
I would think about it, but I'd be like, oh no, like I haven't earned it or whatever weird, toxic inner narrative I had. And as soon as I quit my job, I was like, okay, I'm taking 3 months to just like do nothing. The assignment is to be with myself. And I went to like 3 retreats in that time. And some of them were just day retreats. And the first one was with a meditation teacher and a breathwork practitioner. And we were like on this island in Nova Scotia, close to Peggy's
Mm.
Cove.
So beautiful, I'm
And
sure.
it was so beautiful. And the weather was just right. So we were able to do everything outside. And we were doing this like really incredible like yoga flow, which was unlike any yoga flow I've done, where it was just like intuitive, like moving the body and fucking screaming.
Yeah.
And I was like, why do I not do this more often? This feels so good. Like it just
Yeah.
released. And then I started screaming in my car whenever I'm alone. Not when my fiance is like in the front seat. I don't know. It's just, I'm not trying to alarm him.
Yeah.
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 It's super powerful. It's so good for us to just be in our authentic expression.
Yeah.
Last week, my partner and I were eating a meal together,
Mhm.
and there was some squash that was just like a little, I don't know, maybe it wasn't like the squash itself wasn't fresh.
Mm.
And so I put it into my mouth and it just didn't taste good. And so right in front of him, I went, bleh.
Oh, yeah.
And I spit it out on top of the placemat. And he just looked at me and he's like, you, like, that was the most childish thing I've ever seen you done, like, ever seen you do. And I was like, yeah, like, I literally spat my food out like a little baby.
Yeah.
And it was really amazing and liberating for me in that moment because I felt safe enough to do that in front of him. I didn't feel like I needed to like put on a front or have a mask. I was just like, this was my most authentic expression in this moment, was just to be like, bleh.
Mm-hmm.
And it brought me back to my childhood because I was forced to eat. I was force fed with all of my food. Like, I was
Most of
not
us are.
allowed to reject anything from the
Yeah.
table.
Yeah.
And so if I would have done that when I was a child, it would have been like not a good vibe. And so that was a really healing moment for me, to just be in my authentic expression and to be that like 3-year-old in that moment that just wanted to. And it was so fun. It was really funny too. Like, it was cute and fun, and like, and I just felt so good after. And of course my partner was just like, hey, like, that was really weird, but I just owned it. And then we just laughed about it.
Well, as soon as you said his comment was, that was the most childish thing I've ever seen you do, immediately I was like, what a compliment, because that means that I'm connected with my inner child. And my inner child was like the wisest version of me. And it was the most authentic expression of my original essence. So,
yeah. So like,
yeah, I'm
I know.
obsessed.
It's so liberating.
It's so liberating. Like, yeah,
And
I
that's
love that
the
story.
orgasm, right? Like, just full circle here, bringing it back to those tantric, like sensual, pleasure practices, like when we orgasm, right? Like what is that? It's the authentic expression, right? Of the final, like, yes, oh my God, yes, right? It's the surrender, it's the softening, it's the expansion. It's finally the feminine saying, I surrender. Like, take me, And that's why people say, oh my God, because it's like that you literally meet the divinity within yourself in that moment, because our divinity, our higher energy, is accessed through the authentic expression. And so it's like something to just like really like anchor into is like, how can we bring that orgasm kind of state of being into our daily lives, right? Into our moment to moment, And
this is why we talk about food orgasms, like
food orgasms, right?
Yes.
Like I love food orgasms.
I'm obsessed. My partner's a great cook. I don't even have to make the food, and I'm able to have
even better.
Yes.
Double bonus.
Exactly. Oh, I love just the word surrender, because I feel like we are just, maybe you and I are not so much, but we are conditioned to walk around in such a state of constriction and a state of constraint, and like wearing a freaking suit of armor. And the surrender piece is like, oh, I don't actually need this armor. Like, I'm good. Good. I'm at peace with who I am, why I'm here, and I'm at peace with the universe, and I'm at peace with my reason for being, which is to be in my authenticity. And that surrender is just, it's orgasmic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I think, I know that the act and art of surrender, right, and letting go to let in is really how you allow your purpose to flow in, right? Which is so much about the work that you're doing, right? And the work that you're offering the world, the gifts and the authentic expression of you and your essence, right? Which is so much about laying it down, right? Laying the control down, laying the planning down, laying all of it down, and just being like, okay, I'm going to allow myself to really attune into this frequency of my authentic expression, which allows me to be the embodiment of my purpose.
Why is it
And if
so
so
hard?
many people could just learn that, right? Like, that's how a musician plays, right? If you ask a musician, like, how do you create these amazing soundtracks, or these journeys, right? They're like, oh, it's about getting into my body. It's about surrendering. It's about letting it flow.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's like such an important lesson for us to learn. And sometimes we have to learn it over and over and over again until we really master it. Which is okay, right? That's okay. We're all on a journey. It's not linear. All paths lead home. We're all just sitting around the fire, as Ram Dass says.
I just watched a documentary on Ram Dass. It was called, I think, Becoming No One is what it was called.
Yeah. I love him.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
What a guy. He's not even a guy. He's just, what a being. What a being.
Yeah. A being.
Yeah.
Yeah. An interesting character for sure.
I am going to interject just to share an intro to you that I'm going to recut or not, or we're just going to let this flow exactly
this is
as
flowing
it has.
Exactly the way it's meant to.
Oh yeah. I'm loving
it's just
this connection
channel
with you. 100%. We're in surrender.
Yeah. We're in surrender. That's how it's gonna be from now on.
Yeah. And I think that was my whole intention with bringing this podcast to life. My intention was never to bring someone on and say, give us the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s and the how-tos. It was like, I realized that I'm here to have expansive conversations.
Yeah.
And what a world that we live in, where I can have an intimate conversation where there is such a beautiful flow and exchange of energy, and it can be shared where people can have their own aha moments. Like that's what this is about.
This,
So,
uh-huh.
yeah. So I'm so excited to have you here, Kindra, because you have played a role in my own journey to surrender. And I'm excited to share your wisdom with more people, with whoever is tuning in. So I'm going to do my little intro of Kindra, which is, it's written down. So this is not going to be the flowiest, most organic. And then we're going to go back to our flow and our state of surrender.
We're still in the flow. She's just reading.
She's just organized.
She's just reading some things.
Yeah.
Some things that were written in flow.
Exactly. So Kindra experienced massive success in her sales career, where she worked with a Fortune 500 company and then a very fast growing tech unicorn. After experiencing a layoff, she realized how much of her identity was fused with a very high stress sales career, and how her sense of worth was connected with achievements that were outside of her control. And that ultimately led her on a profound journey of self-regulation, self-discovery, and healing. And through somatic-based practices like breathwork and emotional release, she transformed her life and is now on a mission to help others unlock their full potential and reconnect with their authentic self. Since founding Higher Energy in 2021, she has helped hundreds of high achievers, some including people at the C-level, to connect with their higher energy and to self-heal and to connect with their highest self, to release blocks that they weren't even aware were there. And that's what happened to me when I had my experience with Kindra. I was kind of further along in my personal growth and self-discovery journey. At this point, I had quit my job, but I had a virtual breathwork and neo-emotional release session with Kindra, and during which I released some very deep energetic blocks in my physical body that I didn't even know were there. And I was able to release, through guidance, a really deep-rooted fear of speaking my truth. And I had an inner child moment. I was brought back to a very specific moment from my childhood. And I remember after that session, and there were a lot of audible sighs and noises. I'll never forget. I'll never forget my partner. My fiance was in a meeting in another room of our apartment, and he had to cancel the meeting because my moaning was so loud, and people were like, what's happening in the background? And he just was not equipped to explain what was happening. He was like, I don't know what to say. Anyway, at that point, he was just like, I'm having some internet connection issues. We had to reschedule the meeting. But that speaks, which I just love that story so much. But I remember after the session just feeling so connected, so much lighter, and feeling so much appreciation for my journey and for the opportunity to come closer to my truth and to awakening every single day. And so that is why I have Kindra here. So thanks for being here, Kindra.
Thank you for having me. I'm just holding that session in my heart, and I can just I can plug into it right now, and I'm just seeing it again, and just witnessing you and your inner child opening the door and walking out and going to the park and the sun shining is just such a reflection of your energy and your light. And
thank you.
it was so beautiful to witness that. And that's really the beauty of this work, of new emotional release, of breath work, is really just to be the observer.
Yeah.
Because people are doing the work, right? They're on the mat. They are breathing into their resistances. They are pulling in those memories, they're meeting those blockages. I'm not doing that for them, right? That's a role of a facilitator, is to facilitate the experience and to hold a really safe space for them to then meet that within themselves and to know that they have the power, right?
Yeah.
And when we talk about self-healing, it's so important that we recognize our power to self-heal, to self-regulate, to self-soothe, right? And as a breathwork instructor and as, this founder of Higher Energy, and it was really like my own journey of realizing that after a lot of failed attempts, of going externally to, look to my position, right, in sales and corporate and my quota and my success as a way of validating my worth. It was going to medication and to alcohol and to partying and taking every opportunity I could to travel, to kind of bring me a sense of, happiness and excitement in my life.
It was like an
It was
escape.
the different
an escape from your
relationships.
life.
Yeah, it was like just all these different external things that I was like reaching for, trying to heal, right?
Yeah.
Like trying to feel better, because what we really want is just to feel happy.
Yeah.
We want to feel happy. We want to feel connected. We want to feel pleasure, right? Like joy, right? Like those are the emotions that we want. We want that experience. We want the human experience. That's why we came here.
Exactly.
Right?
That's what we're literally here
That's what we're here
do.
to have, the experience of the full spectrum of like the emotions and the experience and the sensations and like the taste and the smell and the hearing and like the touch, And yet I didn't realize that through those experiences in my journey, I was looking for those external, validations and for me to feel happy and excited, because I didn't feel it inside. I didn't have a source of higher energy within myself. I mean, it was always there, but I wasn't plugging into that source, and learning how to self-heal and learning how to self-regulate. And so because of that, my energy was just all over the place. My sleep, my health, my emotions, my mental health, everything was just super incoherent. And of course, right, our energy, right, how we feel is then reflected into our relationships, into our success, into our performance. So I'm seeing all of these things playing out right in front of my eyes. I'm like 26 years old. I'm in a lot of, like you said, a lot of success in my life early. Yet what a lot of people didn't see, right? A lot of people didn't know. They see this girl who's got a lot of energy and she's excited and she's motivated and she's doing really well. But they didn't see that I was actually numbing all of that because I didn't want to feel the pain. I didn't want to feel the sadness, the grief, the anger, the resentment. And I think for a lot of people today, they want the happiness, they want the joy, the appreciation, but they don't want to feel the other types of emotions, right? Those are uncomfortable. And so it was really through my journey of going into the darkness, right? Getting laid off, losing all of my money, right? Surrendering to this process of like dismantling, uninstalling the current operating software. Did I then meet my darkness? And at that point, it was like, how do I actually feel this? Like, how do I create a space in my body to actually like feel the visceral feeling of this depths of this darkness? Because there was so much from my childhood and my early teens and like, I talk a little bit about my story, and I had a child at 19 and I left home at 16. So I was carrying a lot of heaviness in my life.
Yeah.
And so it was really a process of unraveling all of that. And so in order to really step into our purpose, really to be the expression of our authentic nature, it's really important that we have tools and practices and techniques and skills to self-regulate, to self-heal, right? Because these external things, they're not going to take us where we want to go, right? It's not going to help us run the marathon. It might help us run the short race, right? That's why they call it the rat race, because it's short for a lot of people, right? You get success, and then, and then you burn out at 40, and then you get a divorce at 50, and then what? And then you get a disease, or you get, that's not the way I want to live my life. But I could see the trajectory of that in how I was operating. So, a big part of us going into this process is taking that responsibility for self, right? Is to know that we are the inner source of healing. And that takes a lot of responsibility off of everybody else and all the things, right? The pharmaceutical drugs and the doctors and the therapists and all these things. Those things are helpful, right? I'm not against those things. But you are the medicine. You are the drug that you are so desperately looking for. And so when you realize that, when you actually have the experience, the direct experience like you had in our session, right? And you could open that door and you could walk out that door because you took responsibility for your inner child, right? And you're no longer the victim in that story. You've actually rewritten your history, right? And so much of this work is about rewriting your story. It's about recalibrating your energy and your emotions. It's about rewiring your nervous system. It's about, redesigning, recreating belief systems that actually support the version of you that you want to be.
Yeah.
So that's been a lot of my journey, and it's been really challenging.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. I know?
It's been challenging.
I wish it wasn't challenging. I wish the world was set up to support these journeys. I think we've come, and I feel like you're going to be aligned with this, but I think we've come to a point in like human evolution where we're starting to get access to this conscious awakening.
Yeah.
And as a human race, we don't fully have access to this yet. And there's this movement, you being a part of this movement of like pushing against that resistance to find the ease. And I think this is why we're having these conversations and why this is being broadcast, because we're bringing this to more people who might not be aware of it, who are just not this, the stage of evolution is available to us, but it hasn't fully clicked in yet. Yeah. And that's why this is so challenging, because we're like, look at this age of technology that we're in. Look at what AI is doing for us from a productivity standpoint. Like you don't need to be staring at a computer for 8 hours a day. AI can do most of your shit for you. And if you're in resistance, you don't need to be doing like all this shit.
You don't need a job. You don't need a job.
You literally don't need a job.
You don't need a job. You need a profession, a career, a passion, a purpose. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry to break in there, but
no, break in.
No, it's just like, you don't need that. And I keep bringing that to my clients' attention. I'm always directing them back to themselves, saying, reconnect with your higher energy. What would your life look like? What would you do with your time and your energy if money wasn't a factor? Like, how would you spend your life? And the answers that I get from my clients are so amazing and creative, and I love it because it's such an expression of who they are already. And it's not like they have to change all these things or go to school or do all these. It's actually the things that a lot of times it's the things that they're doing already that it's just like coming naturally to them.
Yeah.
But the process of really, like, again, dismantling, right? Meeting in the darkness, right? Like going through the uncomfortable process of potentially losing a position, losing an identity, losing a relationship, right? Letting go of certain belief systems that you've been carrying for your entire life that give you so much evidence that all your beliefs are true, right? Like that's the hardest part, is that a lot of people have all this evidence in their life that supports their beliefs. So when they want to change their beliefs, well, they're like, well, my life is just the speaking testament to all of these things that I believe. And it's like, yeah, like that's the challenge, right? Like you have to go against the evidence that you have in your life. And that's really challenging.
Yeah.
People think that you're crazy. You're like, how can you imagine something that's not there? Right? So it's a very, very introspective, like what you mentioned was like a lot of people are waking up right now, right? We're having this like mass awakening, and I call it the awareness.
Yeah,
and
the awareness. I love that.
The awareness age, right? Everyone's aware. Everyone's so aware of themselves, their problems, like each other, like everybody's in the awareness, right? And so I created a program that's called Moving from Awareness to Expansion. Because what I feel in my own life is that I was so aware when I was working in corporate. Like I knew what was I knew what was going on. I could see myself. I witnessed myself, but yet I didn't know how to move out of that awareness. Like I didn't know how to go through the different stages into my expansion, because we can be expanding in our awareness, but it can be in a negative polarity.
100%.
Right?
There's awareness of our limits, but what about awareness of abundance and of our gifts and of our authenticity and our purpose?
Exactly.
That's the awareness piece that's actually missing.
Exactly. And not in a positive polarity, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because our brains are conditioned to focus more on the negative, which makes sense from a survival standpoint. It's like realizing that that is just monkey brain programming. Do you want that to be running your life? Because like newsflash, you don't have to be living your life that way. You can actually decide and you can actually choose. And the mindset work is not as hard as you think. Like this is available to you.
Yeah. But you know, it's so challenging because from the moment that we go into school, we are then compared with each other, right?
100%.
So we are constantly looking at other people and seeing what they're doing, right? And then bringing it back to ourselves and saying, well, what am I? I don't have this. Right. Yeah. And so it puts us into this conditioned state of lack where at such a young age, we just start to only look at, what am I missing? What do I don't have? Like, what do I not have? Especially when we get into college and university, right? Yeah. It's all like marks and it's all of this, you know, validation to the person who's the smartest in the class. I had terrible marks in high school and college, and yet here I am running a business for 2 years on my own. And that's just because that institution and what I was plugging into wasn't really an expression of my authentic, you know, purpose, but I was rather forcing myself into something because I thought that's what I needed to be successful.
Yeah.
Right. And so we see a lot of people forcing themselves into jobs, into relationships, into situations and experiences that are not in alignment with their higher energy. And so what does that cause, right? When we're in a relationship or a position that doesn't support our authentic expression, what happens? Well, we start to take pieces of ourselves and we're like, okay, well, I can't be like that, and I can't do that, and I can't express that. And we become this fragmented like version of ourselves where we're we're really just in this monkey mind, we're in this monkey brain trying to be the snake charmer, trying to put on the front, trying to have the mask here, you know, and it's so debilitating. It's so depleting. And we see that on such a huge scale right now. People are so depleted energetically, right?
Yeah.
Spiritually.
Yeah. Social
Right?
media
Which is
doesn't
then
help.
physical and emotional and mental. Like, of course,
Yeah.
like if you don't address the spiritual and the energetic layers of who you are, then how can you show up in your physical and your mental and your emotional expression? Like those things are all connected. And yet we live in this society where it's like, oh, let's just address the mind. Let's just separate the mind from everything else, or let's just separate the physical. Like you just go to the gym if you're burnt out.
Yeah.
No, like that's not, you know, or let's take this medication, or, you know, go to talk therapy, you know, and again, those things are not bad, right? But we have to bring it in as a holistic experience to address, you know, this awakening that's happening, this awareness that's happening within us.
Yeah.
And start actually moving from that awareness into the deeper layers. And that requires these somatic tools, right? These embodiment practices, such as breathwork, right? Meditation, visualization, right? There's hypnosis. There's all these types of modalities that are starting to become, people are starting to say, okay, you know what? I'm having this experience of being able to move from my awareness into more of an expanded state in a positive polarity.
Yes.
Because I've reconnected with my heart, with my higher energy. And that's allowing me to then get beyond myself, to get beyond my limited mind. Because that's really what it's about. Right? Is when we can get beyond ourselves and we can just get out of the way for just a few moments. Like even if it's just 1 hour in a breathwork session where someone finally just breaks free of their self-limited construct, and they're just like, holy shit, like I'm so much more. And I'm like, yes, 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 you are. And they're like, oh my gosh, I've been doing that. And I've been showing up like that. And oh wow. Yeah. And just that one experience is like some people will say to me, wow, I feel like I've done 10 years of therapy in one session, because they've had this direct experience with their higher energy.
Yeah.
So that's a really exciting thing, right? In this mass awakening that's happening, you know, with the advancement of technology, is for people to actually start asking themselves the question, who am I?
Who am I?
Who am I really? Because we got to ask it twice.
Who am I really? Yeah. 100%.
Right?
Not who do I think I am? Who do I think I should be? Who am I? Who am I really?
Because usually when you ask the first question, when you say, who am I? People are saying, well, I'm the senior enterprise sales representative at Box. Right? And you're like, okay, but who are you really? Right? Like, because I guarantee you that when you're not working, you're a completely different version of yourself. And I want to know that version. Like, I want to know who that is. And then bring that to the surface, whether you stay at working at Box or not, you know, like, is it relevant to me?
No.
Right?
No, you are not your job. You're not your job.
But just be yourself truly, right? And if that position, a lot of times when people step into that, right, which is my experience, right, I stepped in fully into my authentic expression in my last position. I worked at a Fortune 500 for 4.5 years. And then I was offered a position at a fast growing like startup unicorn. And I took the bait. I was starting my spiritual journey, and I was starting to open up into that expanded state of awareness in a positive polarity. But I was still holding on to these self-limiting beliefs that said, you have to have a job. You have to have a position. Like, you can't just be an entrepreneur. You don't come from like family money. You don't have like a bunch of money in savings. So like, that's not available right now for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I took this position as a senior enterprise account executive, and it was like the pinnacle of my career, because it was like, it was like the top position that you could have in sales.
Yeah.
aside from management. And I just remember stepping into that interview process, and I was really myself with them. I was like, listen, I'm really passionate about breath work. I am going to start a company called Higher Energy, and this is who I am. And they were like, that's great. We love that. We support you. And I was like, cool. So within a year of me joining that company, it was very apparent that I was speaking more about breath work and somatic healing than I was about the products and services that I was selling. And, all the calls were recorded on Gong, and here I am talking to clients.
All the evidence.
Here I am talking to clients about like their darkness and their trauma. And,
Wow.
and my, and people are like, okay, like she's clearly, so in that situation,
she's checked out. She's
yeah,
actually checked in. She's checked in.
Yeah, I was fully checked out of the chatbot that I was selling. I was like, whatever. But I was so much more, like excited about getting to know people for who they are really. And so eventually, I had to make that declaration within myself. And right after I made that declaration within myself, and I said, I surrender to higher energy. I surrender to my purpose, to my mission. Literally within 3 weeks, I was laid off.
Wow.
And so that's also important for people to know that, like, when you start to really be in the wholeness
universe provides
of your expression.
Yeah.
Don't be worried if all of a sudden, right? Things just start to energetically be recalibrated in your life, and you think it's the worst. I thought it was like, at first I was like, oh my God, like I'm being fired. I'm a mom. Like I have responsibilities. It hit me really hard. But thankfully I had already kind of started my spiritual journey at that time. So I was already starting to understand how this reality really works. I was starting to kind of be in the system and the kind of the autopilot state where I was like, okay, like, everything's out of my control. I'm a victim. I'm, into this more like I'm a creator and I'm a designer of my life. This is the default and this is the designer. So I was kind of in between those worlds. And thankfully I had enough synchronicities that happened around that time of my life when I got laid off that gave me enough anecdotal evidence that, okay, keep going. Even though it was so scary for me to like make that transition. And so that transition for a lot of people is really challenging.
Yeah, it is. And when we talk so much about self-regulation and self-healing and self-discovery, there's that word self, right?
Yeah.
And I think this is where a lot of people get stuck or caught up, is because it's so classic for ego to take over and to say, hey, you have to do this work alone. Yeah. So I'm actually curious, as you're I didn't know that you had like already started your journey, and that's what ultimately led, like the fact that the universe sent you that layoff in response to and as a synchronicity to your declaration of surrender is holy shit, that's magic.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, when you started your journey, I have like goosebumps right now, but were you surrounded by like some sort of support system? Did you have people or containers, or was it really self-guided? Because I think this is where, I think this is where a lot of people get stuck. And obviously when we're talking about these somatic practices and all of these different options for what's going to resonate with you, right? Each person is different. Each person has different undefined and defined energy centers, like that are going to impact what modalities speak to them on their journey. But what was that like for you?
Yeah. So are you speaking to when I was laid off, like during that time or before that?
No, before the early stages of what you talk about as your journey, your spiritual journey.
Yeah. So, I mean, I grew up in a very religious household. So I was exposed to God, like the concept of God, at a very young age.
Yeah.
And so even though a religion does not resonate with me, I completely understand its role in the collective consciousness. And it was the perfect scenario and perfect setup for me to realize myself, realize my higher energy. So coming out of that religious household and moving out on my own, I sort of turned my back on anything to do with religion. And then, but there was always this essence of me that was always interested in energy and positivity and the power of the mind, because a lot of what I had experienced in terms of my success in my career was all of me manifesting, me like
Wow.
speaking things into existence.
Did you
And
know what manifesting was at that point?
No,
Or you just,
no.
okay.
I
Okay.
just knew that, I had a very, I was a mother, right, at 19 years old, and
Yeah.
I had to step into becoming a provider for my
Yeah.
family, for my son, right? I didn't have parents that were supporting me. I didn't have a partner at the time that was supporting me. Thankfully, my son's father and his parents, we have a really good relationship. So that was a really good, that was part of my community at the time. But
Yeah.
I really wanted to be able to do these things on my own, right? It was really important to me to be an independent, sovereign being in my life from a very young age. So being that I was so independent and motivated and passionate about becoming more than I was at the time, that actually was a big part of my manifestation. And kind of not knowing it. So I would be like, well, I want this job and I want to make this amount of money. And I'd get so excited about it and I'd talk about it and I would just embody it before it even happened. And then all of a sudden it would happen. And then I was like, oh my gosh, like that's so cool. Of course, I was taking inspired action and I was really motivated and I was very passionate about my position in sales. And I was very, very active. Like I didn't just sit around doing nothing. I took a lot of action when I worked in sales. I was I was the first person to show up at the conference and speak to as many people as possible. So I was always very motivated. But when I got into spirituality, when I started reading books, I was starting to have this awakening and I started to really just be like hungry. When you're just hungry for knowledge, you're hungry for something that resonates with you on a deeper level. And I remember PlanGrid, the company I worked for at the time, got acquired by Autodesk for $1 billion. It was like the largest acquisition in Autodesk history. And I remember getting a big payout of money. So I took my mom and my son to Costa Rica. And this was really at the start of my spiritual journey. I was already reading books. I was already starting to like meditate. And when I went to Costa Rica, I set an intention. I said, I want to drink plant medicine and I want to meet people that are going to be a part of my tribe or be some sort of spiritual tribe, because when you're having an awakening and you're going through this big awareness transition, a lot of the relationships that exist in your life are not always in alignment with where you're going, right? No. And it's nothing on them, right? It's just an energetic mismatch. So when you're having this awakening, it's really important, like you said, to have like people around you that can support you. And so going to Costa Rica, I think that was my third plant medicine ceremony. I had drank a couple times before that in Canada, but this was my first time drinking in Central America. And it was a very powerful experience for me. And in that experience, I connected with my higher energy in a really, really meaningful way. That was a very, almost like a two-way conversation with me and my higher self.
Wow. What were you drinking? Just out of curiosity.
I was drinking ayahuasca.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that ayahuasca was I didn't actually realize that was like you drink it.
Yes.
I haven't done, I want to.
It's a tea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not the greatest tasting. So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So
keep
you're
going.
just drinking this tea. It's like a sludge. And
yeah.
it's really good. They sometimes, if you're lucky, they'll have like a little candy like at the altar, so you could just kind of like shoot it and then eat a gummy bear. But
Okay, so
not,
this was the third time you were drinking ayahuasca?
yeah, at 26 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, incredible. Continue.
Yeah. So I signed up for this ayahuasca ceremony. I go, I have this powerful experience. It was very challenging though. It was a very challenging experience. So again, I'm not saying go and drink ayahuasca so that you can
Of
connect with
course.
your higher energy. That's
Of
not what I'm
course.
advocating, because it was a very, very challenging experience for me. It was honestly
Yeah.
traumatic in a lot of ways, like looking back. And this is why I'm in these practices now, because I wish I had these practices, these tools like self-regulation, breath work, to go back in time and to be able to navigate like a plant medicine experience, because it can be so intense for our bodies, for our nervous system, right? So
Yeah.
a lot of times in psychedelics, and it's better now, but 5, 6, 7 years ago, there wasn't a lot of integration and trauma informed education happening for people that were drinking these medicines. The people that drink these medicines have been doing it for thousands of years in the jungle, and they understand the energies. They're educated from the moment that they're born with these energies and these plants, right? They live in the environment. So when you're taking Western culture and Western people and you're planting them in these experiences, right, drinking these medicines, it can be really, really it can be a challenging experience. It can also be traumatic, right? If we're not holding that space. And I'm very passionate about psychedelics, right? I'm actually now giving psychedelic guidance and working with people with mushrooms. So I love it. Again, wish I had the practices and the tools to go back, in time. But connecting with my higher energy in that experience and gave me the experience of unconditional love that I had never experienced really marked a huge turning point in my life. And what a lot of people will tell you about psychedelics is that psychedelics can help you soften things and help you look at things and help you see things from a different perspective. But the real work begins when you get home, right? When you get back. Because it's so great to be in the jungle and to drink this medicine and be singing Kumbaya around the fire and be like, I love and light, but it's a different experience to then bring that back into, at the time I lived downtown Toronto. I was working at Autodesk and I was a mid-market account executive. So it's like, how can I bring that back into my life? And so it was then during that time that I had started to meet different people on my journey that, again, were also going through this process. So those people said, hey, come to this breathwork experience, right? Let's practice some breathwork together. Have you ever heard breathwork? So that were some of my first experiences of connecting with community, connecting with psychedelics, reading books, starting to kind of open up, kind of working in sales by day and then doing these things by night and starting to see a lot of different things, right? Like that's when I first discovered the Heart Math Institute. Yeah. So that was a major turning point in my life, right? Just learning about the science of our breathing and our heart and the connection between our brain and our heart and how that's directly correlated with the quality of our breath. And the physiological changes that can happen by just changing the way we breathe. And it's really cool to see like these scientists who have been studying this for like over 30 years. And there's over 400 different published studies to prove that this isn't just woo-woo, like this is real. So that for me was like a huge thing when I was working in corporate, because I think when you're living so much in in the masculine and, like living in the corporate world, like everything's about evidence and KPIs and results. And so for me, like heart math was that very masculine, like very like, even though it's all about the heart, it's very scientific, right? It's very much about like plugging into the computer with a sensor and like seeing yourself on a screen and breathing with this pacer. So for me, that was my entry point. And I loved that. And it was a huge part of my self-healing journey. where I actually completely cured myself of anxiety and insomnia and panic attacks with just doing heart math. So I'm a huge advocate of heart coherence. And
was this like were you at an institution, or is this something you're doing at home?
This was all like this was all like just self, like just like buying their sensor and then
buying a sensor. Okay.
So they sell a technology, a sensor that you can buy, and then you plug that into your phone. And then I was just training myself with my phone. Yeah. Yeah. For like the first year. Yeah. So I actually have like all my old stats and all my old readings that I was plugging into that app and breathing with this app for at least 20 to 30 minutes every single day for a year.
Wow.
And that was really life-changing for me. And that was enough for me at the time because of my own experience. I was just having even more of an awakening because I was like, here I am selling like software. And that's really cool. And I love that because I love making people's lives better. But imagine if I was like offering like a service that can help people reverse all of these different, issues and problems and like disease and chronic, autoimmune and mental health. Like then it just went like everything just exploded for me because my mind just went, I was like, what am I doing? Like, I mean, I love what I'm selling. I was selling construction technology at the time and I loved it. But for me, like, I was like, I have to serve the collective here because there's just not enough people doing this work. There's not enough people talking about this work. And so that for me was my first entry point. I got certified as a heart math trainer. I thought I was going to do corporate kind of workshops and training for a while. So I was thinking about that. I never thought I was going to be a coach. So that was really different for me. And again, taking it back to the surrender, right?
Yeah.
Like I thought I was going to be this corporate, heart math trainer. And I was going to go to all these companies and I was going to do all these trainings and workshops. And that maybe was still a path. But the universe had a different plan for me, right? And so it was really important that when I got laid off, I just surrendered. I surrendered to the path. I surrendered to the journey, and higher energy and surrendering into that took me on a journey. And that journey was not an easy journey, right? Like it might have been easier to go and just teach people about heart math at companies, right? Like that could have been like the path of least resistance.
Yeah. But it would be misaligned.
Because getting laid off and then like joining, that's when I took my second certification in trauma-informed breathwork with Pause. And that was an 8-month program.
Which you did, or was that the one that culminated in Turkey?
No, that was so that was my second one. So the heart math was the first while I was still in corporate. The second one happened when I got laid off, like the same week. So the same week that I got laid off, I got invited to apply for this program as it was last call. And it just perfectly lined up for me. And thankfully I had the money because I had just got a severance package. So I was like, well, hey, there's no better investment that I can make than in myself. So even though this is a third of what I have for the rest of my life to live and to buy food and keep the lights on, I'm going to invest in myself. So I signed up for that program. It was amazing. It was very challenging because heart math is a specific style of breathing that's very like rhythmic and calm and very relaxing, whereas breathwork is very much of an activation.
Kind of triggering, to be honest.
It's very triggering. Very, very triggering. Yeah.
Really stretches your nervous system, but in the best way.
It does. Yeah. In a really good way. So first session right off the bat, we did a 90-minute breathwork session.
Whoa.
I was like, oh, I'm good. I've been doing heart math for a year and a half. Like I'm a pro. And then I started doing the double inhalation through the mouth, and then boom, like within 20, 30 minutes, I was having a breakdown. I was crying. I was convulsing. I was shaking. I was feeling all the shame the sadness of my termination and my career, and I could just feel that. And I was like, oh, like, whoa, like here I was getting terminated and laid off thinking, oh yeah, it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. But
I'm holding all of this.
But there's something deeper there too, right? That's my identity. Like that was my career. Right? So that was a really that was a challenging initiation into breathwork, right? For 6 months, right? For 6 months straight, we were doing 90-minute, 120-minute breathwork sessions every week. Plus, we had to do other sessions. So it was a big embodiment practice, right? Yeah. Because to really facilitate, right, and to lead people through these journeys, like you have to go through the fire first.
Yeah.
Right? And go 100%. Through all of that dismantling. And so yeah, it's been such a journey, and I've had to meet so many edges in that journey. Even when I finished my certification, and then I was certified, I'm like, oh, I'm certified now, and I was like, oh, great. And then it's like, okay, but now what? Right? Like, it's all exciting when we're doing the certifications or like doing all the things and we're being held in that container. And then all of a sudden the universe is like, okay, now it's time to like go take this out into the world.
Yeah. And your ego just wants to wear it as its identity, just like it did.
Yeah. Oh, I'm a breathwork instructor. Yeah. I'm certified. Cool. Like, now what? Right. Yeah. And so like that was a really big wake up call for me too. I remember like my first breathwork workshop that I held with a really big company. I'm not going to mention any names here. But they said to me, how much do you charge? Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't know.
Triggering. Like, oh, I have to face all of my limiting beliefs around money now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Like,
oh, yeah.
That is like still something, right? I am still working through those edges, and it's gotten so much better. And I'm so grateful to myself.
Yeah.
To go through those edges and to go through that darkness. But I remember like my first workshop, I got paid $250, right? I said, well, it's $250 for 30 minutes and $500 for an hour. And it was for 75 people.
Oh my God.
And I remember the CEO goes, we'll do the 30 minutes. And I was like, okay. I go show up. It was like an hour drive for me. So I'm driving an hour to go do something for 30 minutes. They were late. The whole experience was like so not in alignment with me, but it was so in alignment at the same time, which is sometimes you get into these paradoxes in your life.
Yeah.
And I remember walking out of that experience. I was there for 2 hours and I didn't even get paid. The CEO actually left after, and he had like to take a call. And so nobody knew that I didn't get paid. So I walked out of that experience. I got into my car and I started bawling my eyes out because I was like, like, what am I doing? Like, who do I think I am? Like, and this was like the CEO of this company was a billionaire. He was a billionaire.
Yeah.
And I was just this like little tiny speck that, and at the time, like that money meant a lot to me, right? It was like $250. It was a lot of money to me at the time because I was unemployed, right? Yeah. So, and then I had a coach at the time. I had a spiritual coach, and he was like, "You're gonna not only send them an invoice, but you're gonna send them an invoice for $550 because you were there for 2.5 hours." And it took me a week to do that. I was so scared.
Wow.
I was terrified. So yeah, like having to work through those edges of like worthiness, and scarcity and limitation and not having enough and not feeling enough. And I even had CEOs book meetings with me because I was, I was friendly, and they're like, okay, I'll take a meeting with you. And then look at my website and say, this isn't going to work for you. Like you're not like, unfortunately, like, I had so many rejections,
Wow.
right? So many people being like, yeah, like I had a company invite me to a barbecue that they were hosting. They wanted me to do like a breath work with like beside a bouncy castle. Like,
Oh my God.
and when
Probably
I got
with
on,
like beer and hot dogs on order.
they literally had an open bar, and they
Oh my God.
wanted they wanted a yogi person to come in and like do yoga. And then they thought they thought breathwork was the same as yoga. So when I got on the call, they're like, so what kind of yoga? I was like, I'm not a yoga instructor. Like, I'm a breathwork. Oh, like, what's that? So I've been in so many situations that haven't been aligned for me, like
Yeah.
in terms of my vision and what I'm bringing to the world. And yet in that misalignment, in that paradox, right? In that
Yeah.
contrast, I have then gotten so clear about
Yes.
what I actually want to express into this world and who I want to attract and who I want to work with, right? And now it's like this point of like me choosing who I want to collaborate with, right? And
Yeah.
a lot of those companies that I was bending down to, right? Looking back, I was like, wow, like it's such a gift that they gave me the opportunity. Obviously, like I'm very grateful for that because they're just playing a role in my movie, right?
Yeah.
They're just a supporting character to my main character. And thankfully, they're just playing the perfect role, in the perfect way to lead me to my destiny and my purpose of shining bright, no matter what other people say or what they think
Yeah.
of my business or they think of my mission.
Yeah.
And that you need that when you step into your purpose.
Yes, you do. You need to be challenged and
Yes.
triggered to know where your edges are and what you need to decondition. Like, oh shit.
Yeah.
I didn't know that I had such money wounds, especially when you're in sales and you're like able to so easily cover it up, right? You're like, oh, I just got like a nice commission check. It's so funny. I was looking at an old journal of mine and I was making multiple six figures and I literally wrote down, I can't believe this Moleskine journal was $40.
I know.
I'm like, I just spent $5,000 on a yoga teacher training, like nothing. And like,
I know.
like for what?
Yeah.
Oh my good gracious.
But that stuff
Yes,
was given for free, right? Like when you worked in tech, all this fancy stuff was just given for free. And like, I feel like this experience has shown me about what actually matters to me.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what do I actually value?
Yes.
Because all of that stuff in my closet that I bought at Saks, like the Balenciaga and the Louis Vuitton and the Gucci, like, yeah, it stuff is nice, right? It's cool. I like it. Not Balenciaga anymore, but
Love the original Balenciaga.
like, but you lose the value of some things, right? When you're working in that corporate world and you're making all this money, and sometimes you lose yourself in it.
Yeah.
And I certainly did. I certainly lost myself in it. And now I'm like, damn, I really value like a cotton bodysuit or this is like a cotton, like
breathable,
like
comfortable,
cutesy, like thing,
sustainable.
That's like $130, for a set, and for me, that's so much more valuable than that stuff. But when you step into this whole purpose, right, you have to look at yourself. And there's nothing wrong with treating yourself, right? There's nothing wrong with buying a Gucci bag, right?
No, hell no.
Nothing wrong with it, right? I love luxury.
If that's what makes you feel like you're coming from overflow, you fucking do the thing.
Yeah. But now my overflow just looks and feels very different.
Yes.
Right? Like now overflow for me is like buying like seasonal organic food at the market. It's about investing in my health and wellness, like going to other practitioners and other coaches for different sessions. It's about investing in my bedding and like space and, so there's different things that we can value when we have this awakening. Right. And so for me, it was a very humbling journey to go through like the success and then to kind of lose it all. And then be kind of in this state of scarcity. And, like there were definitely moments where I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to support my family. And in March of this past year, like I even had a moment where I wasn't able to pay my rent. And that was a huge edge for me. And I think a lot of people, when they step into their business or their purpose, they think like they have to have all of this stuff figured out. They're like, well, I need to have savings. I need to have like 3 years of living expenses. I need to take this loan. I need to get this. I need to raise this money. And of course, those things are great. If you have access to them, great. I just didn't. I didn't want to take a loan. I didn't want to go raise money. I didn't want to. I just had I had a little bit of savings and I was like, okay, well, if this is where it's taking me, then I need to meet this edge. And I met the edge of not having enough money to pay my rent. And it was debilitating for me. I was out. I was done. Like I was like, hey, like I'm out. Like I'm here. I've now come face to face with my biggest fear, which is not having enough money to pay for my safe space because I don't have a family to go home to. So this is my safe space. And to not be able to pay that rent and to not know if I could provide that for my son was like my biggest fear in my entire life. Like that was like the pinnacle of my fear, that and death. Like to me, that's death. Right. And so I died. I died in March. Something in me had to die. Right. And so much about this whole process of awakening and stepping into our purpose is like, we have to allow those aspects of ourselves to die.
Yeah.
Now, when my bank account's low or some little things are not working out the way that I wanted them to, doesn't even faze me.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't faze me. Of course, it's not my preference, right? Like my preference is the vision that I'm holding.
Yeah. And you're opening yourself up. You're creating a container for yourself to receive the vision that you're holding.
Yeah. But in those moments, right? Like when I couldn't pay my rent in March, my position at Autodesk was up for hire, right? And I saw it and I was like, damn, like I have a good relationship with them, right? Like I could have went back.
Yeah.
I didn't leave on bad terms. I just took a different position and I loved my team. And so for me, it was like, okay, there's that $130,000 plus commission, plus. Sounded really good when I'm not being able to pay my rent.
Yeah.
So that was a thing. That was an edge. And I've had people book calls with me and they're like, yeah, I got to that edge and I went back to the corporate world and I'm miserable. And I'm like, oh, like, and I know I feel it for them. I'm like, I feel you. Like, I know I've been there.
Yeah.
And I present, my offering to them or I give them a path and I'm like, but you've got to jump. You have to regulate yourself. You have to like do this work now. If you want to be able to like make that jump and then stay, because so many people make it and then they go back.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like the boomerang or the elastic.
Boomerang. Yeah. It's a big thing.
Yeah.
And it's happening for a reason.
Basically, it is. Yeah. It's like I kind of hate to use the word test, but I'm going to, because I can't think of another word right now. But the universe is going to test you and it's going to ask you, are you ready? And I feel like what you're describing is this test that if you were to go back to Autodesk, it'd be you signing the contract saying, I am not ready.
Yeah. And I'd have to learn the lesson all over again.
Exactly. You're
right?
back in the cycle.
You got to go through that all over again.
Yep.
And there's no shortcuts.
No.
People think, oh yeah, quantum leap. Sure. Quantum leap all you want. Right? But you still got to feel it. You still got to do the work.
Yeah.
You know, you can quantum leap in your mind, and yeah, synchronicities can line up for you and things can be easier. But at least in my experience, like from what I've gone through in my life, you still got to go to the edges. Like I always come back to the lotus flower, right? The lotus flower is so beautiful. It's one of my favorite flowers.
Yeah.
It grows so beautifully. Like if you ever see a lotus flower, it makes you stop in your tracks because it's so beautiful. And everyone wants the beauty of the success, right? We look at the CEOs, we look at the people who are successful. We're like, it's so beautiful. It's so amazing. Look at their life. And you're like, yeah, but guess what's underneath the water, which you can't see. You can't see where, you know how lotus flower grows in mud, right? So if you're not willing to go into the mud and to go into the darkness of yourself, right? Then you're not gonna get there.
No.
And so for me, like that journey has been so much about that, right? Like getting into like the ickiness of myself. Like I've had to like really like lean into like my disgust, like the purge, like the disgust.
Spit it out.
The disgust of myself, of like the decisions that I've made in my life.
Yeah.
From fear, from scarcity, from all of these things. And I'm like, you know? And then to go from there into like anger and just be like, you know? And just be like, fuck. You know?
Yeah. Yes.
Like, I fucking hate myself. You know, and to just meet that, you know,
yeah,
you're like, oh, I love myself. I'm like, like, I fucking hope that you do, but guess what? I guarantee you that there's somewhere in there that you hate yourself.
And you gotta meet the resistance.
You gotta meet it, right? Like, you gotta admit it. You gotta look yourself in the face and be like, I see you.
Oh, the amount of letters I've written to past selves. Good gracious. In an effort, because I was like, oh shit, didn't realize I was holding resentment toward that version of me. And then it comes up and you're like, well, yeah, it's coming up for a reason because it's calling to be healed and resolved. And if I turn away from this, I'm going to I'm missing the moment.
Yeah. You're missing the gift.
I'm missing the gift 100%. Yeah. And like, I feel like this is the perfect, as soon as you went, bleh, I was like, oh wow, we've had a full circle moment. And we're like, you know, I booked an hour and a half for you for time with processing. So this is perfect to wrap this up, even though I don't want to. I want to keep talking to you for 3 hours and we will. Like, we're going to continue having conversations.
It's been a good chat.
It's been so good and so activating and triggering in the best ways. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for bringing your authenticity and for allowing this to unfold in the most beautiful and organic way.
That's the only way the only way I roll. You can't. I've tried all the other ways and I just can't anymore.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm working on it.
Yeah. You're doing great.
Thanks.
You're doing so good.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of you.
My God. Recently, like a few days ago, I was filming B-roll on my phone. Sometimes I'll just like, you know, plop it on a mirror as I'm putting makeup on and like whatever comes out, comes out.
Yeah.
And Grant, my fiance, walked into the room and I started speaking to him like, hey, babe. But as I checked I was going through the recording to like use certain pieces, and I clocked my voice went up like 3 octaves when I was speaking to him.
Yeah.
And I was like, we're not doing that anymore. Like that is such a pleaser, submissive, like programming. And when I heard it reflected back to me, I was like, oh my God, that's not my voice. And that's not even like, I have the most incredible relationship with my fiance. He doesn't need me to talk to him like that. And I just realized like, wow, in that very moment, I just gave away all of my power. I'm not saying I gave it to Grant. I'm not saying I gave it away to anyone, but I gave it up. And I was like, wow, okay, well, taking that lesson and running with it. And just
so
small
many
things.
There's so many lessons, right? When we can just take a moment and pause and take a breath, right? There's so many lessons, right? There's so much depth in ourselves. People may think that they're surface, right? And that there's not a lot there. They don't know what their gifts are. They don't know what they're here to express into the world. But I don't agree with that.
No,
I see so much potential. And so every single person that I've ever met, I see their potential. That's one of my gifts. One of my gifts is that I can feel into the depths of them and to see what's possible. And I think that's what makes a really great coach and a facilitator is when you can see into people's potential and then you can facilitate an experience for them, right? To then experience their own potential. And that's where a transformation happens, right? So there's so many gifts in the little moments where we can just be in awareness of ourselves and we can tap into all of it, right? The ickiness, the goodness, the fullness, the emptiness, right? There's so much in all of it. And if we can just create enough space in ourselves to really feel it, that's where we can then tap into the purpose, right? And I think for me, it's the breath. The breath is what creates the space.
Yeah.
Right? When we take a deep breath, right? We just create that space. So thank you so much for having me. I feel like this conversation is, the part 1 of maybe part 3. But I feel like it's a great foundation for people to kind of get to know me and to get to know you too, and to resonate and connect through a very authentic and vulnerable place. Because just because I'm a breathwork instructor and just because I'm a coach doesn't mean that I'm not going through my own challenges. Doesn't mean that I'm not going into the depths of my darkness. Doesn't mean I'm not
means
dealing with my scarcity, right? Like I'm going through those things to then be a beacon of light to others, right? And that's what you are here to also illuminate. And I'm so excited to collaborate with you and to be a part of your mastermind. And it's just such an honor to have this conversation with you. And it's been so flowy.
Thank you, Kindra. I want to finish with, first of all, I'm also so excited for you to be guiding group breathwork sessions in the mastermind. I can't wait. The mastermind is called Purpose Uprising. And I like to think that when people enter my world, they're not just entering my world. They are. They're entering my world where I have like the people who have impacted me. You're getting access to them as well. Yeah. And I think that's the collective, 100%.
Yeah.
I want to finish with a little lightning round, if you're cool with that.
Yeah.
5 questions, like quick, intuitive answers, and then we'll wrap up.
Cool.
Okay. I think I've landed on the 5 questions that I'm going to repeat for like everyone. So there's some continuity. I was like trying to land on them. Anyway. Okay. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. When you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
A singer.
Oh my God, me too.
Yeah.
I actually tried out for for Canadian Idol when I was 16.
Oh, that's so exciting. Wow.
Okay, next question.
Yeah.
A book that everyone should read.
Conversations with God.
Oh, that's on my list.
Such a good
I haven't read it.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Best piece of advice you've ever received?
You got to feel it to heal it. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Worst advice you've ever received?
Like bypassing it, like not like pretend that it's not there.
Keep
like,
calm and carry on.
Yeah.
That sign used to be in my
good vibes only.
Room.
Like,
yeah,
just no.
No. On the theme of advice, this is the last question. If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Just slow down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Slow down.
Life is happening in the present moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just breathe. Breathe, honestly. Breathe. Slow down. Exhale. So important.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I've been just on one final note. I feel like this is worth sharing. You and I did an Instagram live recently, and I asked what's like one simple breathwork technique that people can integrate into their lives right now if they wanted to. And you talked about coherent breathing. And I, funny enough, went to a breathwork session, I think a couple days later, and coherent breathing the coherence has come up a lot. So clearly that's something I need to be paying attention to. But every night I've been doing coherent breathing. So 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, no pause through the nose for like probably 10 minutes. And I think of you, and it's very healing and conducive to sleeping for me. I've been doing other breath work. I've been doing the 2 inhale like in the mornings for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But I'm just sharing that because for anyone listening who's like interested in integrating breath work, it can be 5 minutes to start. It can be 1 minute. It doesn't matter where you're doing it, when you're doing it. You can do it anywhere.
Yeah. Just incorporate
but I think
it.
that's
Yeah. Just set the intention and prioritize it because it's so good for you. I mean, scientifically, it's proven that if you practice for 6 to 9 weeks for at least 10 to 15 minutes every day, you have a 56% drop in depression. I believe over a 30% increase in vitality. So vitality is this word that I've been really loving lately because it's really the essence. It's the essence of who we are, really. It's the aliveness.
Yeah.
Right. And so thinking about having 30% more vitality in your life, like what could you do with that energy in your life?
Yeah.
Whether it's in relationships or in professional pursuits, like whatever it is, like for me, just having that vitality is just so good. And of course, there's other benefits like sleep and focus and performance and stuff like that. But for me, those are the 2 that really stand out.
Yeah, numbers don't lie, people. For those analytical minds out there, there's your evidence.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay. Thank you, Kindra.
You're welcome. Until next.
What a fabulous conversation. I hope you're feeling inspired to bring breath work into your life. If you don't already, feel inspired to do it more consistently because breath is what connects us to everything. It's what connects us to life. It's what connects us to our vitality. So you can find Kindra on Instagram at I am higher energy, all one word. And be sure to follow her on LinkedIn where she has a weekly newsletter. You can find her on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/IN/Kindra Fox. Tune into our Instagram live as well. That's linked on my page. If you're looking for more information on breathwork, we talk more about that there. And so you are aware, at this moment in time, I have 2 spaces open for private mentorship. So these are really reserved for women who identify as future CEOs. So what does this mean? Doesn't mean you need to be the future CEO of a Fortune 500 company. Actually, I like to think of a future CEO as anyone who pictures themselves as even a badass in-demand executive consultant one day, okay? That takes CEO energy. So if you see yourself as someone who is here to do something more, and you're really ready to tap into those reserves of potential that you know you haven't fully tapped because you're not fully in alignment with your truth and your authenticity. In my mentorship and coaching spaces, we do the work to connect with your zone of genius and your gifts. You get to know yourself again, and you build the confidence to walk in this life and literally ask for and attract everything that you want. You not only have the confidence, you have the mindset and the energetic state, a new baseline to actually walk in abundance every single day. This is where you get clarity on what you're here to do. It's where you walk a path that feels so uniquely aligned to you that it's just impossible not to wake up literally excited for what you're doing every single day. This is where you call in opportunities, relationships, abundance that are fully aligned and destined for you. In my containers, you let go of the versions of you that have been trying to live up to someone else's expectations, and you actually pick up the pen and you start writing your own story. You are spinning your wheels because you think that you have to. But what if your belief system was such that you believed this was meant to be easy and not hard, and you didn't need to burn out constantly? What you really want, what I really wanted, was to be so deeply valued for your genius. You want to be hearing from the people around you how amazing you are. You want people to recognize what you are truly capable of. And I see you. I promise you, if you do this one thing, your life will change in the wildest way. Take ownership and stop seeking permission from anybody else to change your life. You are the only person who is qualified to give that permission. This is the most life-changing result that I create for my clients. Self-trust and confidence to make big moves and to truly live their best life. All of this comes from within. If you are ready to fall back in love with your life and to feel so fulfilled and so on purpose with everything that you do, to the point where the most aligned opportunities are literally being served to you on a silver platter, this is where you're going to create that magic. So if you're ready for this level of transformation to start walking in your life as the woman or as the person who gets whatever the fuck they want, this is the container where you are going to create that magic. You can email me, jessica@jessica'okane.com, or send me a DM on Instagram. If you are ready for this transformation, I have 2 spaces available for private mentorship. I also have a mastermind, which is open for enrollment. If you're looking to create change, you have to get in the right rooms and in the right containers. Energy is everything. And if you are surrounded by mediocre energy, you're going to see mediocre results. So if this is speaking to you, I would love to hear from you. In the meantime, thank you so much for being here and listening to Purpose Uprising. Until next time.